Thank you for joining us at the 2021 annual community event for the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research. I am Don Elliman, and I have the honor of being the Chancellor of the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. You've probably noticed that the center has a new name this year, the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research. This naming is a testament to the incredible work happening at the center and an exciting sign of the innovation to come. This event is a celebration of the outstanding work made possible when the community comes together to support outstanding research. The CU Anschutz Medical Campus is home to some of the best minds in medicine, leaders who translate big ideas and bold breakthroughs into better health for women, families, and communities everywhere. We believe that improving the health of women leads to improved health for all, and we're glad you're joining us in celebrating the progress made and the opportunities ahead as we take this important work to the next level. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2021 annual community event for the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research at the nationally recognized University of Colorado School of Medicine. This is the 18th annual community event. We've learned a lot since our 2020 event and hope to reach an even wider audience this year. Over the past year, the entire world has experienced significant upheaval amid a still present health threat. In light of the pandemic, our campus has been leading the charge to find solutions for preventing and treating COVID-19, as well as supporting researchers in all areas of health as they resume their work. The Ludeman Center has been a beacon of support for researchers during this challenging time, mentoring and supporting early career faculty and advancing vital research. With the support of our community, the Ludeman Center has also offered COVID-19 relief funds to scientists as they reinvigorate their research programs. This is made possible because of you. Work happening at the Ludeman Center over the past year and the strides we'll make in the future depend on support from people like you. Today, I'm talking to you from the Fitzsimmons Building at the CU Anschutz Medical Campus. This location was specifically chosen to demonstrate the progress made in the time since President Dwight Eisenhower was treated in this very building. At the time when President Eisenhower was recovering from a heart attack here in Aurora, women were not thought to have heart disease for the most part. When a woman did have a heart attack, medical practice didn't differentiate between the sexes in terms of care. Physicians simply used treatments and knowledge developed through studies based on men in female patients as well. Our program for this afternoon has been filmed from around the campus, and you will see incredible progress. Our researchers are not only focusing specifically on women's health and sex differences, but they're informing health decisions in clinics and communities around the world. The care that was available for President Eisenhower is vastly different from the options available to both men and women today. This personalized care now offered at this campus is revolutionizing medicine, and the Ludeman Center is playing an integral role in shaping the future healthcare landscape. At the center, we encourage and support researchers studying women's health and sex differences across the lifespan. This work has made women's health and sex differences research a point of pride for our campus and has inspired other institutions to follow our lead. As we highlight the innovation that has taken place at the Ludeman Center from the very beginning and recognize the resilience of our faculty throughout COVID-19, we also celebrate all that your generosity has made possible. In fact, we're only able to bring this event to our community each year because of the outstanding generosity of each of you. And we would specifically like to recognize our presenting and leading sponsors for 2021. This year's presenting sponsor is Arrow Electronics. You can also see our leading sponsors scrolling across the screen now. We thank you all for your philanthropic leadership. We also thank the chairs of the host committee, Sharon and Lanny Martin, as well as other members of the committee for making this event a success. Our annual community event is also made possible because of the active and dedicated members of the Ludeman Center's Community Advisory Board. Their engagement has brought you all together in support of the center's mission. We are all so grateful to our sponsors for making the work of the center possible, and I now turn it over to Kate Brown, a member of the Ludeman Center Advisory Board and founder of Boulder Organic Foods. She is an outstanding supporter and advocate for women's health research, and I thank you, Kate, today for telling your story.
Thanks to all of you for attending the 2021 annual community event, and a special thanks to Chancellor Elliman for being our MC. I'm Kate Brown, a member of the Community Advisory Board and a huge supporter of the Ludeman Center. I want to share an important and unfortunately common story with you. There's a significant history of cardiovascular disease in my family. When I turned 50, I went to my doctor to better understand my risk factors for developing heart disease and get a baseline of my cardiovascular health. When I told the doctor about my family history, she said, "You don't need to worry about that. Women don't get heart disease." This was terrifying. First, because it is so far from the truth. And second, because I wondered how many other women had been given that information from a medical practitioner. A doctor, anyone in fact, would have to be pretty insulated from current information to not know that women get heart disease, and that in fact it is the #1 killer in women as well as men. I'm so grateful that I was able to find a new doctor and advocate for my own health. A critical component of the Ludeman Center's mission is the community education programming. If our community is educated with evidence-based research, people can work with their physicians rather than be passive recipients of medical information and treatment. I joined the Ludeman Center Advisory Board in 2017 because I believe in the mission and think that sharing this information with the community is essential to improving health. When I first met with Nan Eklund and Judy Reckensteiner, I was shocked to hear about the lack of research in women's health and sex differences. I had no idea this had been the state of medical research for so long. This is an underlying reality in medicine that many people don't know about, that women's health and sex differences weren't extensively studied for a very long time. I believe that we cannot allow this disparity to be the unknown foundation of our medical system, and this is why I so strongly support the Ludeman Center. Their research, mentorship, and educational programming is helping shape the field of medicine and improve lives in the process. I hope you will join me in supporting the Ludeman Center today. You can make a gift online, via text, or using a gift envelope to help fuel this critical work. Thank you so much for supporting the Ludeman Center. To demonstrate the power of your philanthropy, let's take a short look at this video highlighting some of their programs.
Until the 1990s, not the 1890s, women's health was very understudied. And as a result, much of the biomedical research results that we have are based on data obtained 100% in men.
So now we're in a situation where if we really want to have a healthy world, we cannot ignore more than half of the population.
It's easy to say that treatment should be equitable and just, but it's much harder to make that a reality. And we here at the Ludeman Center take that very seriously.
The three-part mission of the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research is to do the cutting-edge research in women's health and sex differences, focusing on cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and mental health as it impacts physical health. Second part of the mission is to mentor, train, and fund scientists, MDs and PhDs, men and women who wish to focus their careers in the areas of women's health and sex differences research. And the third part is to educate the public and their healthcare providers so that everyone's healthcare is based on the best possible evidence.
In addition to the research that is supported so generously by so many of our community stakeholders, there's also aspects of the Ludeman Center that are critical to young people's career development. As you can imagine, it is not easy to build an academic career while you're also trying to raise a family. We've also been dealing with the pandemic and how that has negatively impacted so many people's research. And the center has been a home for these individuals who are really challenged by what we're experiencing during these difficult times.
My research is focused on type 2 diabetes and the sex differences that persist within that disease. What I'm interested in understanding is the mechanisms for how diabetes affects men and women differently, with the ultimate goal of being able to identify treatments specifically for men or women with type 2 diabetes so they can live a more active and healthful lifestyle. The Ludeman Center has been so very important for me in my research career. I was awarded a seed grant for junior faculty. With that seed grant, I was given the resources, the mentoring, and the training to be able to make that next step in my career. And that would not have been possible without the Ludeman Center.
We're always really excited to bring scientists into the Ludeman Center. We not only provide them with an initial grant, but we also provide them with training, mentoring, and we have an evidence-based curriculum where they get trainings from experts in the field.
Mentoring is a clear goal of the center, and the community that the center has created invites mentorship in a way that I don't think a lot of places in academia are really set up for. I've been involved with a few projects here at the center. One had to do with sex and gender differences in the reception of bystander CPR. And right now I'm working with Dr. Kazani on a project where we're looking at why there's such a stark difference in the reception of advanced heart replacement therapies, and particularly left ventricular assist devices. Without the support of the center, we wouldn't have even been able to start having this conversation. And because of that, we're starting to bring that conversation to a national audience, which is really exciting both for the center and then for the treatment of women moving forward.
One of the interesting aspects of the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research and its relationship with the community is it really goes both ways.
I feel that the community has a right to know what we're doing. You know, if we gather knowledge through our research, which we certainly do, and we only publish it in scientific journals, people won't know what we're doing because it will be in jargon and journals. Instead, we want to bring it to the public so that everybody has access to it and can guide their healthcare decisions along with their doctor as their partner to make sure that they make the best, most informed decisions possible. Another really special thing about the Ludeman Center is that we have a community advisory board. People are really interested and excited about what we do, and they want to help support the center so that we can improve health.
I would love to continue to work with the Ludeman Center. I've learned so much as a researcher in general through being a member of the Ludeman Center that I look forward to the opportunity to pay that forward.
From the standpoint of the center, there's a lot of excitement on the horizon. The overarching goal of my work here with the center is guided by the idea that everybody should receive treatment equitably.
I love the tagline, Healthy Women, Healthy World. We have to pay attention to women's health in order to have a healthy world.
It's so much fun to work with this group of people. It brings me great joy to do that. We have lots of big plans, and we're very excited about it.
What a wonderful example of philanthropy in action. Thank you to Kate Brown for joining us and telling your story. I now have the privilege of introducing a pioneer in the field of women's health and sex differences research, Judy Regensteiner. Dr. Regensteiner is the director and co-founder of the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research and an outspoken advocate for women's health. She is also a prolific researcher herself, exploring the cardiovascular consequences of type 2 diabetes. Under her leadership, the Ludeman Center has grown from an idea into the nationally recognized center it is today. During her tenure, the center has supported nearly 80 researchers with funding, mentoring, and training. In addition, the Ludeman Center's educational programs have reached many thousands of individuals in Colorado and beyond. Please welcome Dr. Judy Regensteiner.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Elliman, and thank you to everyone joining us today. Our long-standing partnership with the community and the strong backing from university leadership for women's health and sex differences research makes me incredibly proud and excited for the future of women's health and the health of everyone. The pandemic has brought both heartbreak and incredible scientific breakthroughs. It has brought unthinkable challenges while opening doors. Since the early 2000s, we have joined with the community to bring focus and resources to women's health research. However, we were limited in our reach by geography. As we have adapted, we've expanded our reach. Today, I am thrilled to be with you in Colorado and around the world. Scientific research is more important now than ever. We must gain greater knowledge about women's health and sex differences in order to provide optimal health care for all. Today, I feel a great sense of pride. When we first became a center in 2004, I was excited about the opportunities ahead. We knew then that there was a great need to focus and dedicate resources on women's health research. My excitement has been continually renewed. In May, we announced a new name, the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research, thanks to the incredible generosity from the Ludeman family. This is so much more than a new name. It is a permission to dream, to imagine a world where more women's health researchers bring forth critical knowledge and build new, better tools for diagnoses, treatments, preventative measures, cures, and even vaccines. But importantly, it is also a recognition that there is much work to be done. It is a vote of confidence in you, our supporters, to continue the mission. Women's health and sex and gender differences research will lead to women and their families having optimal health care. At the Ludeman Center, we provide talented, passionate scientists the time and tools to creatively answer questions about medical issues that have long been overlooked. We are taking leaps forward, bringing new innovative ideas, cutting-edge methods, and expansion into new areas. In the video, we saw 2 researchers who have been impacted by your generosity. They are just 2 examples of what you make possible. We have dozens of additional stories just as impactful. In a few minutes, you will hear from Dr. Jennifer Merez. I am inspired by her work and thrilled that we are able to bring such a tremendous and relevant leader to speak with us all. I hope you all take away helpful information from the talk. I find her work to be especially relevant to our mission. The Ludeman Center has reached a few impressive milestones that are making a tremendous difference in people's lives. Our reach at the Anschutz Medical Campus has grown to 80 researchers and 34 different departments, centers, and divisions. We have awarded $2 million to seed new research ideas and gain new knowledge. Our awardees have used their new knowledge and data to obtain over $100 million in external funding. Think about that. We turned $2 million into $100 million for women's health and sex differences research. Said another way, for every dollar we have awarded in seed grants, center researchers received $55 in external funding, an impressive return on investment. An important measure of our success goes beyond whether our early career scientists succeed in obtaining new funding or have findings published and translated to care, but that they continue to do research answering the next critical questions to improve healthcare. I am very proud that over 90% of Ludeman Center scientists remain in academic medicine today. Another impressive milestone is how we have grown our impact on our community. We started with this event as a single educational program, and today we hold over 30 educational programs each year for researchers, clinicians, employees, and their clients in the Denver community. We are now reaching audiences nationally and are working to increase our reach. These accomplishments show that our model of seeding innovative research and outreach is working. But there is more. We also work hard to translate our findings into impact to patient care. Today, you will hear a few of our stories of impact. The seeds we plant are growing into larger projects and changing prevention strategies, diagnosis, treatment, and care to improve the health and well-being of women and men across the lifespan. Because of you, we are making a difference, but our work is far from done. Today, I hope you are all excited about the possibilities for the future, the research we will accomplish, and the change in healthcare we will make happen with your support. And I now turn it over to my distinguished colleagues, Associate Directors Dr. Jane Roosh and Dr. Wendy Court, for one of my favorite parts of the program, announcing our newest Ludeman Center scientists.
Thank you, Judy. It is our pleasure to be here today.
And we agree with you, Judy. Announcing our new seed grant recipients is one of the most exciting parts of the program.
Highlighting our seed grant recipients is more than just announcing names. It demonstrates new ideas that are being invested in. It represents early career investigators who now have the resources to take chances and to pursue innovative research. It is a tangible look at what your philanthropic support is accomplishing.
Seed grants are an integral part of the Ludeman Center's mission. Every year, we award these grants in a highly competitive process where MD and PhD trained scientists submit grant applications. A committee of senior scientists then selects the best applicants who receive grants of $25,000 for their proposed research projects. These projects enable scientists to generate the data that enable them to write competitive applications for larger grants from the National Institutes of Health and other research sponsors. This process is critical for supporting new scientific discoveries and achieving evidence-based change in healthcare. And we go further than just funding. In addition to the grant award, these researchers also receive intensive mentoring and training from the center to ensure their success.
These scientists are specifically funded by the generosity of the Anschutz Foundation, the Jacqueline Leifer Foundation, the Jean Land Foundation, the Ludeman family, and the University of Colorado School of Medicine, in addition to other generous donors. Now I will announce our new Early Career Faculty Research and Development Award winners. Dr. Lindsay DeBose, Postdoctoral Fellow in the Division of Geriatric Medicine. Dr. Stephanie Gilly, Instructor Fellow in the Department of Pediatrics, Section of Nutrition. Dr. Andrew Libby, Postdoctoral Fellow in the Division of Endocrinology, Metabolism, and Diabetes. Dr. Christina Metcalf, Postdoctoral Fellow in the Department of Psychiatry. Dr. Anna Pinto, Postdoctoral Fellow in the Division of Endocrinology, Metabolism, and Diabetes, and Dr. Stacy Trent, Assistant Professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine. And finally, we recognize the recipient of the Jacqueline Leifer Wish for the Heart Award, Dr. Casey Wolf, Assistant Professor, Cardiology.
Now it's our pleasure to welcome one of our previous seed grant recipients, Dr. Pratiti Kazani, to give her research presentation. Dr. Kazani is one of our most productive Ludeman Center scientists. She's a cardiologist with experience in both the clinic and the lab. Please welcome Dr. Kazani.
Welcome. My name is Pratiti Kazani. I'm an advanced heart failure cardiologist at the University of Colorado, and I'm really honored that the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research invited me to speak to you today. I really wish we could have been in person, but I'm thrilled that we're here virtually to talk about how wonderful the center is and how it's helped both me and a lot of my colleagues. I am going to speak to you today about the recognition and treatment of heart failure in women. It's a really important topic, and I hope to walk you through some of my history and how I got here in the first place and how the Ludeman Center has been so instrumental in my development. So I grew up in Greenville, North Carolina, which is an eastern small town in North Carolina. It's a college town. I'm the child of immigrants. I moved there from Vermont, where I was born, and I was always really interested in science. When I was younger, I kind of always knew I wanted to be a doctor. No one put pressure on me, but my aunts were community physicians and took care of patients, and I always wanted to be like them. So when I was an undergrad, I got a scholarship and went to Duke. And then while I was there, I actually got recruited to the NIH to work there after my undergrad training. And I worked for this guy. I didn't actually know who he was when I was interviewed. And I did HIV research with him, and he really built up my confidence and my interest in science over time. So I worked in Dr. Fauci's lab, then went to Duke for medical school, was really interested in infectious diseases, which is very far from cardiology. Then I went to Stanford for internal medicine residency training and met Sharon Hunt, who was really a world-renowned heart transplant cardiologist. And she's the one who convinced me that I should be interested in cardiology. I never thought it was a field for me because most cardiologists are men and only 10 to 15% are women. So I never saw it as a field for me, but she convinced me. And she said, you did such a good job on the rotation, you should really think about it. And you should think about research. And she convinced me to switch fields, which was huge. And then I ended up going to Duke Cardiology, and I continued with research based on some of the stuff that I'd worked on with Sharon Hunt. So I was on an NIH T32 grant. I got some pilot funding through industry. I got some funding through the American College of Cardiology. And then I got recruited to the University of Colorado, which was my first academic job in 2015. And I was working hard. I was working on papers, grants, data analyses, lectures, and I took care of a lot of patients. And I knew that I was doing the right thing. And then I heard about the center. I talked to Judy Regensteiner, and I talked about my research interests, and she convinced me to come and meet other members of the center, other researchers, and I was really inspired. And I applied for a Center for Women's Health Research pilot grant, which really helped launch a lot of my research. So I was fortunate enough to be awarded one of the pilot grants, as have been a lot of other researchers over time. And then that led to an NIH K23 Career Development Award, which is one of the main research awards that a lot of young investigators aim for. And it was all going well. The NIH grant and the center grant were moving forward, and I was doing clinical practice 25% of my time and research 75% of the time. And what is my research in? Well, it's in heart failure. So heart failure is when the heart doesn't pump or relax well and get blood efficiently to the rest of your body. And it's become a passion of mine, because when someone can't function, when they get short of breath, when they're struggling, there's a lot of different therapies that are available, and people can actually do better over time if they're treated appropriately. So there's a lot of medications, devices, and other therapies that are available for people with heart failure. And the one thing I realized as I was practicing, both as a trainee and then as an attending, is that women are grossly undertreated for heart failure compared to men. And I found it extremely problematic. So it became my life's passion to help reduce some of those differences and disparities. There are a lot of therapies that we're able to use for women. What we've seen is that women are grossly undertreated for medications, for device therapies, and also, most importantly, for advanced heart failure therapies. So when their hearts are completely failing, they're much less likely to get a heart transplant or a heart pump called a left ventricular assist device, which I'll show you in just a second, and they're much less likely to be referred for hospice or palliative care. Most women are told that they're short of breath because of anxiety or for other reasons, and that really bothered me. So my area of research focuses mostly on women who are referred for advanced therapies for some sort of severe heart failure, and how they go through the process and how we can improve that process and improve equity for them. So I've been working a lot on data analyses, so big data with Medicare, with other registries, with hospital level data. We've also been doing qualitative research, which is something that's used in behavioral economics and social sciences, and it's something that I'd never been introduced to at Stanford or Duke, but we are experts in doing it here at University of Colorado. I've also been working on health policy evaluation, so I've become very involved in national health policy organizations, including the United Network of Organ Sharing, which is the main policy maker for organ transplantation in this country. So advanced therapies involve things like heart transplant, which everyone knows about because it's been around since the 1980s, but also left ventricular assist devices. So left ventricular assist devices are basically pumps that go into your heart and then pump blood all the way to the rest of your body. So they take up all of your circulation and move blood around for you. But you become a bionic person. You have to have batteries at all times or be hooked into a wall at all times. But these therapies can extend someone's quality of life and quantity of life. So if someone is dying of heart failure, the average person on a left ventricular assist device lives an additional 5 years, if not longer. However, when we look at how patients go through this process, their actual pathway to receiving therapies, they have to be recognized in the community as having heart failure and then referred to an advanced heart failure center. And we suspect that a lot of the people who get lost in the community are actually women. What we found is that once patients get to an advanced heart failure center, a small minority of them who are actually getting to the center are women. And an even smaller percentage of those people who actually get advanced heart failure therapies are women. So out of all advanced heart failure therapies for heart transplantation, less than 30% of all heart transplants go to women. Fewer than 20% of all LVADs go to women. And why is that? It's multifactorial. Like a lot of women's health research, some of it is biological and some of it is social. And so we became very interested in this, particularly the fact that a lot of the reasons why women don't get these therapies is because of social reasons. When people are evaluated for advanced therapies, they're evaluated based on medical reasons and social reasons. And when we went back, we realized that the social evaluations are not standardized in this country. And a lot of different centers take women out of the running for any of these therapies because they don't have social support. So some people require a caregiver for patients with advanced heart failure for 1 week after an advanced therapy, and others require up to 3 months of 24/7 caregiving. And if they can't provide 24/7 caregiving for 3 months, they are not a candidate. So this creates huge disparities in this country. And so our group has done a lot of projects talking to social workers and policymakers and other people at other centers and trying to reduce these disparities in use of these therapies. I also do a lot of clinical work. I take care of patients, and that is one of my greatest joys as being a physician. So these are pictures used with permission from my patients. This is my patient, Joe Dolan, who used to come to all of my presentations and bring his wife, and they became very close to our family. And this is a picture used with permission from Fred Hamilton, who I didn't know before he showed up in my clinic, but he started calling me Dr. P, and he was really infuriated with the term heart failure. He thought failure is not an option, you shouldn't really coin it this way, and he told me it should be my life's mission to change the term. So I have talked about it a lot in national meetings, and people are actually talking about it now. So Fred has made a lasting impact on me, and I will never forget him. Also, I teach, so we have medical students, residents, and cardiology fellows, and this is one of the great joys of being in an academic center. You get to teach, give lectures, have journal clubs at your house, they get to meet your family. And it's also nice because there aren't that many women in cardiology, so to serve as a role model for future trainees is one of my great joys. And then finally, I love to spend time with my family. I have 2 young children who I had during training, and it was never easy, but they make everything worth it, and my husband. And then one thing I will say is that I'm incredibly grateful to the Ludeman Center for a couple things. One, I got this pilot grant from the center. It really helped propel me and snowballed into something that was huge and really helped build my career here at the university. But the other thing I want to say is a lot of us who do a lot of clinical work during COVID felt like we hit a wall. And that's where I talked to Judy, and the Ludeman Center really came through because we had some COVID-19 relief funding, and even a little bit of funding and a little bit of belief in you when you're going through struggles can mean a lot. And I know that for me and a lot of my colleagues and friends who are part of the center, it really kept us going in times when we didn't know if we could continue. So everything was going really well, but it has also helped lift us up in times that have been very difficult. How has the center helped me? So it was pilot grant funding. I also got some funding for the Doris Duke Fund to Retain Clinical Scientists when I was having struggles about taking care of home duties, clinical research, clinical work. I got some COVID-19 relief funding, but also, more importantly, the things that people don't always realize, it gives me a community. So I'm in cardiology where there are not a lot of women. And I get to meet researchers around the campus who are really smart and doing amazing research, and it gives me a community outside of my normal division. I also get a lot of training lectures on how to negotiate, how to write grants, how to network at conferences, and I get mentorship from Judy and Wendy Court and a number of other people within the center. Because of the center, I have now moved on to other grants, despite COVID and despite a lot of the other roadblocks that I faced last year. And I'm now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I was recently approached by a big foundation to apply for further funding because during 2019, 2020, I actually was awarded an ethics grant, and the only reason I was able to carry it forward was because of the COVID-19 relief funding through the center. And that grant has gone extremely well through the NIH, so now I've been asked to apply for further funding. I've had multiple publications that have been in the works. I've had research assistant support, which is key because you can't keep moving forward if you're doing every little piece of research. I've had database support, collaboration with networks around the country and national organizations. I've had upcoming independent funding, which I'm applying for, and it's just been an incredible experience. So I wanted to conclude with saying thank you to the Ludeman Center for Women's Health Research at the University of Colorado for providing so much support to both me and a lot of my colleagues and friends. I wanted to say a special thank you to Dr. Regensteiner and to the center for helping propel so many of our careers over this time. Also to the Colorado Cardiovascular Outcomes Research Group, of which I'm a part of, and then the Colorado Center for Bioethics, along with collaborators both here at the university and at other centers. I wanted to really thank everyone for joining us today, and I want to thank you for your support of the center and for continuing to support researchers like myself.
Thank you, Dr. Kazani. What a wonderful talk that demonstrates the importance of researching cardiovascular health. Her work, understanding how often women receive LVADs, is saving lives by educating physicians on this disparity and also by giving community members information to advocate for their own health. This research, and that of so many others, is made possible because of all of you. We now have a special message from our presenting sponsor, Arrow Electronics. Their generosity fuels our work.
Hello, I'm Gretchen Zeck, Chief Human Resources Officer at Arrow Electronics. Arrow is a proud supporter of the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. Arrow guides innovators forward to a better tomorrow, and that's why we support this center. The Ludeman Center's very premise that women's unique healthcare needs deserve research focused on their symptoms, responses, and medical treatments sets it apart from labs around the world. At Arrow, we believe technology makes life better. The Ludeman Center mentors and funds the next generation of researchers, supporting their cutting-edge research on issues that pose a significant threat to women's health. Today, you will learn more about these efforts related to cardiovascular disease and diabetes management, as well as the important intersection of mental and physical health in those diseases. We hope that your experience today will inspire you to support the Center's commitment to innovations that help women live healthier lives. Thank you.
Thank you again to Arrow Electronics for sponsoring this year's event. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Jennifer Mirez. Her talk, Heart Smart Solutions for Improving Health, is such a relevant topic for today, and we're thrilled to have Dr. Mirez with us. She is a leading expert in the fields of nuclear cardiology, cardiovascular disease in women, and patient-centered healthcare advocacy. As Senior Vice President of Northwell Health's Center for Equity of Care, she oversees and provides strategic guidance for Northwell's diversity and health equity initiatives. She also serves as the health system's first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Dr. Mira's clinical focus and research are centered on the elimination of health and gender disparities and cardiovascular disease in women. Welcome, Dr. Jennifer Meares.
Hello, everyone. I am honored to join you today to share a few insights on the topic Heart Smart Solutions for Improving Health. I wish to extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Judy Regensteiner and her amazing team at the Ludeman Family Center for Women's Health Research for being pioneers in leading us on and giving us insights into women's cardiovascular health and all of women's health. And just to share with you why this topic is important today, I've had the privilege of working with a network of luminaries across the United States and the world for the past 2 decades. And we have been on the journey to really expanding the way we think about women's cardiovascular health, all of women's health. And I've chosen this topic today to really highlight the fact that heart disease is still relevant and still the #1 killer of women in the United States. And even though we have made progress in understanding the diagnosis, the treatment strategy for heart disease, we still have a lot of work to do. So our agenda today will be, we will focus on the state of heart health of 2020-21. I hope I will convince you why heart health matters. We will discuss the disparities in outcomes for heart health, the impact of gender, race, and ethnicity. We will take a look at recent insights and highlight what gaps still remain for us to work in the women's heart health arena. And then importantly, we'll spend some time discussing solutions, simple solutions, as to how we can conquer heart disease, how we can mitigate our heart disease risk, and highlight that women and families need to be partners in their heart health. And we'll discuss this via the Heart Smart program. So why do we care about heart health? Why does it matter? And I think this graphic here shows, and you have to forgive me, I'm a cardiovascular imager by trade. And so love to show images because I think a picture tells a 1,000 words. And you can see here, when we look at the latest statistics from the United States, published by the American Heart Association, published this year in January of 2021, to look at the major causes of deaths for US males and females. And this is these data are from 2018 because we're always 3 years behind. You can see here that cardiovascular disease, and you're looking at the deaths for females in red, men in blue, still remains the leading killer of men and women in the United States. And you see here cardiovascular disease, which includes heart disease and stroke and diseases of the blood vessel, accounts for more deaths than cancer or accidents or Alzheimer's diseases. So still the leading killer and worthy of discussion. And when we think of putting heart disease or cardiovascular disease into perspective, we stop for a moment to pause to think that your health is your greatest asset. And you can see this highlighted here by the World Heart Federation, which every year for the past, I think it's over 25 years, the last Saturday in September honors World Heart Day. And you can see here, everybody believes globally the greatest wealth is health. And I definitely always say your health is your most important asset. And when you think that heart disease is still the leading killer of men and women, not only in the United States, but globally, even in the setting of COVID-19, we know that a healthy heart is the key to healthy life. That is the theme for this year's World Heart Day. And I love this graphic here where they say, if you want to be responsible towards your family, be responsible towards your heart. So this is just putting things into perspective and why this topic is of great importance. Just a quick sort of 101 on what is cardiovascular disease. Very often the terms are used interchangeably, cardiovascular disease or heart disease. The entire umbrella is cardiovascular disease. And these are diseases of the heart and blood vessels, which you can see here include heart disease, which is when we speak of diseases of the coronary arteries that lead to blockages that lead to a heart attack. The symptoms of angina, stroke, high blood pressure, valvular disease, congenital heart disease, peripheral vascular disease, and the underlying culprit or the root of all problems for cardiovascular disease has to do with atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of plaque in the arteries. It starts early, silently, maybe in our late teens, and progresses over the course of our life, if left unchecked, can lead to heart disease, heart attacks, and complications. The good news is, and we will share this with you, that 80% of heart disease is absolutely preventable. Again, highlighting the magnitude and why heart disease is important and cardiovascular disease, it affects nearly half of American adults. You look at the statistics here that at least 46% of Americans at least have one of the important risk factors for heart disease, hypertension. That comes to about 116 million people. And when we think of the impact, 1 in 6 males, 1 in 7 females definitely has some type of cardiovascular disease or at risk for cardiovascular disease. We see on the right here, we know that physical activity is one of the great mitigators of cardiovascular disease, and we see only 1 in 5 adults does some sort of physical activity. We'll talk more about that. Additionally, we see what it costs our nation for cardiovascular disease, that it's about $351.2 billion. If left unchecked, we will be in the $1 trillion range. So what are the symptoms of heart disease, and are there gender differences? And here you see that heart attack symptoms, definitely, there are many similarities in both men and women. And I just highlight here from the American Heart Association, classic symptoms that we think of when we think of heart disease: pain, pressure, stabbing in the chest, some sort of chest discomfort, usually coming on with exertion. The pain can radiate to the shoulder, the neck, the jaw, cascading into symptoms of difficulty breathing, sometimes showing up as heartburn as the initial symptom. But as we have studied the sex and gender differences between men and women as it relates to heart attack symptoms, we know that symptoms show up along a spectrum for women. And that yes, while most women will show up with many of the classic symptoms, what we term classic symptoms of some sort of discomfort in the chest, that we have to be on the lookout for milder symptoms without any chest discomfort as the initiating marker of a heart attack. And women can have sudden onset of weakness, more fatigue, body aches, just feeling unwell. And so this sometimes becomes sort of a great decider as for women as to whether this is a heart attack or not, whether they're going to stay home. And we have lost lives because of an under-recognition of the spectrum of symptoms of heart attacks in women compared to men. So what factors increase my risk of heart disease? And I think here we again know that there are indeed gender differences. And this infographic coming from the American Heart Association highlights the fact that we can think of risk factors, and this is a growing pool of risk factors, because as we study more and more science, we find out many more things definitely affect the whole process of atherosclerosis. And you can see we can think of risk factors in terms of modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. The modifiable risk factors, and this is important because the modifiable risk factors offers us all an opportunity to definitely mitigate our risk or of heart disease or conquer heart disease, right? And so the risk factors there include hypertension, smoking, still a powerful risk factor, leading a sedentary lifestyle. We know that psychosocial factors, anxiety, depression, stress plays a role. Big one is the unhealthy diet, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Elevated cholesterol, diabetes, powerful risk factor, and definitely obesity becoming weight challenge, definitely all modifiable things we can do something about. And when we think of the non-modifiable risk factors, and we think of the genetic predisposition, family members, first generation with early onset of heart disease for men in their 50s, for women in the 60s, siblings having heart disease, these are all sort of, the genetic predisposition. We know many of this is linked to abnormal cholesterol profile. Race and ethnicity, we know that among Blacks, definitely highest burden of cardiovascular disease, the same with South Asians. And we know in terms of gender that heart disease, cardiovascular disease, equal opportunity disease, that men and women definitely get it to the same extent. And that as we get older, our arteries get much, stiffer, and we have a higher burden of atherosclerosis. That definitely leads to cardiovascular disease. So here is sort of a spectrum of cardiovascular disease. And the way to think about it is to always focus on the fact that 80% of cardiovascular disease risk factors are modifiable, and that's where we turn a lot of our attention. What have we learned in the past 2 decades or so as we have focused on the aspects of cardiovascular disease? We know that definitely there are disparities in outcome based on race, ethnicity, and gender. We know highlighted in this publication from Dr. Nanette Wenger, one of the luminaries in cardiovascular disease, especially in cardiovascular disease in women, one size does not fit all. And in this eloquently written article, the authors summarize the evidence that we know that sex, gender, race, and ethnicity impact outcomes in cardiovascular disease, and a call for us in the entire medical community to integrate these factors into our treatment plans and healthcare delivery model. And so here is where let's take a closer look at some of these factors, just the overall impact of race and ethnicity in cardiovascular disease, and then we'll turn our attention to what we have learned about the sex and gender differences. As it relates to racial and ethnic disparities in heart disease, the evidence is overwhelming that there are indeed significant racial and sex disparities in cardiovascular disease, and that is including heart disease, valvular disease, hypertension, peripheral vascular disease, the entire spectrum. And we know that over the years, the evidence highlights that Blacks are 33% more likely than whites to die of cardiovascular disease. What is even shocking is that, and this highlights the sex and gender differences, the under-recognition of symptoms, is that women who present with heart attacks are less likely to receive guideline-directed care for heart disease, more so than men. And women are 25% more likely to die and not leave the hospital if they receive suboptimal care. And we know that what is sobering but reassuring is that sex-based disparities in outcomes could be eliminated if women receive better quality of care by 69%. And again, highlighting here that the highest risks are among young and middle-aged Black women, highest burden of cardiovascular disease risk factors, developing cardiovascular disease early, higher heart disease mortality. And it also begs the question for truly a customized approach to increasing awareness and knowledge about heart disease in the Black community of women. So as we think of the sex and gender differences of cardiovascular disease, it leads us to the entire discussion of women's health and an expanded approach that is needed. Because for several decades, up until probably 3 decades ago, we sort of did a one-size approach that in terms of gender, that women, we treated women essentially as small men, and all of our research, which pretty much excluded women, we extrapolated the treatment strategies and the insights from research on men onto women. And what we have learned and what you're working at the Ludeman Institute led by Dr. Judy Reagan-Steiner is that there are indeed sex and gender differences. This chart here summarizes what we know about some of the differences. There are conditions where women are uniquely affected, and these are definitely gynecologic disorders, breast disease, obstetrics, definitely related to, our sex hormones and just our entire biological build as women. And that had been the focus, and that has been labeled as women's health up until recently. We know that there are conditions where women are affected disproportionately more than men, and these include osteoporosis, depression, gallstone disease as some examples. Women in menopause, much more likely to have bone fractures and joint disease and osteoporosis, and depression definitely affecting women, especially as we go along the spectrum of life. We also know that there are conditions where the manifestation of disease is different than men, and we have learned a lot from the evolving body of evidence as it relates to heart disease and cardiovascular disease. You put this into perspective, and we look at the major risk factors for cardiovascular disease in men and women, and we now do a recategorization, and you can see that we have the non-modifiable risk factors, which we all share, age, sex, family history. We have the modifiable risk factors, which is where we have to work a lot on, and we can change our trajectory for heart disease by modifying and optimizing and mitigating the risk. And here we see the female-specific predominant risk factors, which include pregnancy-induced hypertension. We now know from the past decade or so that women who have pregnancy-related complications are at a much higher risk of getting heart disease 5 to 10 years after that delivery or the symptoms have resolved, leading us to monitor these women closely. And so what has changed, we have now included pregnancy history as part of our risk factor analysis when we're seeing women in our offices. Gestational diabetes, women with polycystic ovarian disease, early menopause, definitely a risk factor for women linked to heart disease, and women with inflammatory diseases, which includes rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and other diseases, definitely predisposed to heart disease, and an evolving body of evidence to show the effects of stress and depression on a woman's risk for heart disease. Here, just a snapshot to show you that some of the risk factors, and this is from Dr. Nidhi Agarwal from the Mayo Clinic, highlighting in blue here all of the factors women and men share, and here are the risk factors in red that are unique to women. So it has definitely given us a way of rethinking or expanding how we approach cardiovascular disease for women. This is an important graph that highlighted, and this is from the American Heart Association, published in 2004, highlighted sort of an aha moment for us all in science and in the medical community. When the American Heart Association started to do a survey to figure out where were women getting their information about heart disease, it highlighted the fact that most women were not getting their information about heart health from their doctors, but getting it from newspapers, television, celebrities. And the aha moment here came with the recognition that the medical community needed to truly partner with the media and with communities and community organizations across the United States to truly raise awareness and educate women and their families about what they can do to mitigate heart disease. And so the Go Red for Women movement was instrumental in spreading and getting accurate scientific information about heart disease across into the lay audience. This is just a snapshot of sort of the end of the 20th century, the start of the 21st century, where the recognition that we needed to this partnership with the media, partnership with community organizations. And you see here a highlight of a snapshot of organizations dedicated to increasing awareness. The Heart Truth came from the NHLBI, the Go Red for Women campaign, which started in 2004 and is still ongoing. Women Heart, the National Coalition for Women Living with Heart Disease, founded by 4 women who were misdiagnosed, who sort of turned their energies from being misdiagnosed to really helping women across the country, women surviving with heart disease. And of course, the Society for Women's Health Research, truly all partnering to get the science about the sex and gender aspects of heart disease and increase awareness. And here you see, this is a snapshot. A picture tells 1,000 words, right? That in the end of the 20th century, 1995, when you look to see, is your husband headed for a heart attack because it was a male-focused disease, women were felt to be immune, to 2003, making the headlines of Time magazine, an entire episode devoted to understanding the science and raising awareness about women and heart disease. And when we look at how this is captured, we see the increase in the trend of awareness. We started in 1997 was the first survey, and you could see, again, based on ethnic breakdown, that white women were much more aware of heart disease as the leading cause of death than Black and Hispanic women. And you could see over the years that, yes, we have come a long way, but we're only still at 65%. So more work to do. So let us think about where are we? What are the gaps that exist in women's heart health? And what could we do to mitigate that gaps? What is the work ahead and the opportunities ahead to truly conquer heart disease, so that probably in 5 years or 10 years, when we look at those maps again, cardiovascular disease will not be the leading cause of death of women and men in the United States. And I think you can see here the power of research. So highlighted in this graph, and this again is from the American Heart Association, again, published looking at cardiovascular disease deaths, published in 2021. And you can see here that looking at deaths for heart disease for women in red, cardiovascular disease, for men in blue, you can see that like sort of a change in the curves, right? Here, up until recently, more women died from cardiovascular disease compared to men in the United States, right? And what we have seen over the course of the past probably 2 decades, that we have seen a 30% decline here in mortality and death rates for women from cardiovascular disease. And I think this can be attributed to an increased research focus on cardiovascular disease in women. However, we are seeing that a change is occurring, and the progress made, it plateaued for a while, and now the death rates for both men and women are on the upcrease. And so calling us to focus our attentions on continued increasing awareness, but also on more sex and gender research to understand the nuances and the difference, the biological difference, as well as the gender differences for cardiovascular disease. So again, I think we pause to go to storytelling. And about 3 or 4 years ago, my colleagues and I, Dr. Stacy Rosen and others, Dr. Sharon Hayes, Dr. Nanette Wenger, we were at a conference. I think we were in, I think we may have been in either Washington, D.C. Yeah, Washington, D.C., when we all got together to sort of discuss the state of women's cardiovascular health. And we felt that, you saw those curves, we were seeing that the progress that had been made was being reversed. And so remembering my patient, Barbara Paskoff, we went back to say, let's consider doing the power of storytelling and producing a documentary that could highlight stories from women across the country to issue a call to action. And so we got together, and it's been a labor of love. And I always joke and say this is the last documentary I'm ever going to produce, because it truly was like climbing Mount Everest. We set out to create Misdiagnosed. We highlighted the story we worked with, I would say, Emmy-nominated, Emmy Award winner Trish Regan, who had produced Autism the Musical. And we set out to produce Misdiagnosed, recruited the help of our friend Laurie Russo, Dr. Stacy Rosen, and got the backing of the Northwell team to produce this documentary, and many other contributors, Dr. Noel Barry Mers from Cedars-Sinai and others. And it was really to ensure that women are fully informed not only about heart disease, but about the unique ways their bodies respond differently than men. So this was meant to expand the thinking of women's health and to truly empower women to be partners on the journey to health. So let's take a look about a quick 1-minute piece about Misdiagnosed.
In the United States, there's a big health disparity between men and women in terms of the care that they receive. We're really at the point now where we're just beginning to investigate and understand why that is.
If we now know that women may have a different way of having cardiovascular disease, what about stroke? And what about infections? And what about cancer? And what about trauma?
Our society doesn't value women, and so, and that's a broad statement, but what is really important for women is advocating for themselves, because unfortunately, no one else is doing the advocating for them or us.
I would hope that this film would inspire other people to see that not only is it important, not only is it social injustice, but that we can do this. We can do it.
And so I think it has sort of brought us full circle to say, yes, there are indeed sex and gender differences with cardiovascular disease, heart disease in women. Yes, the awareness campaigns have worked. You saw the graphs that showed the increase in awareness. But then I think the disturbing factor is that we are about on the verge of reversing all the progress made. Still a need to customize the message and increase awareness among our Black women and Latina women and South Asian women, because they bear a higher burden of cardiovascular disease. You fast forward to 2021, and in May of 2021, this landmark publication published in the Lancet from a group of cardiovascular disease specialists across the world, scientists, clinicians, and researchers, highlighted the state of women's cardiovascular health. And pretty much the headline here says it all. All of women's health needs are worthy of attention. And they highlighted here in this infographic that 35% of deaths in women worldwide are caused by cardiovascular disease. The numbers are staggering. You saw the numbers from the United States, and it pretty much issued a call for action that women's cardiovascular health and all of women's health, understudied, underrecognized, underdiagnosed, undertreated, and issuing a call for action for more women to be included in clinical trials. And this Lancet publication is definitely worthy of discussion and reading, but because it clearly lays out a roadmap of what we need to do. And I think at the Ludeman Institute, you're already leading the way and showing us in the United States what needs to be done. So let us spend the last few minutes talking about what can we do to truly take charge of our heart health, to conquer heart disease and decrease the chances of a heart attack or complications from heart disease. And really, what can we do to sort of deliver on the fact that 80% of cardiovascular disease can be prevented by lifestyle changes, by us taking control of our heart health as per the American Heart Association. So as we think of healthcare delivery for the 21st century, the medical community really need to focus on the patient and community-centered partnership. We need to be partners in this journey to heart healthy living, to just living and improving health and improving health outcomes. And so you look at the facts about heart disease, and I think we can extrapolate this to many chronic diseases. Cardiovascular disease, 420,000 female deaths each year in the United States, 43 million American women living with cardiovascular disease. As I showed you in sort of the process of atherosclerosis starts early in life, it's silent, it builds up over time. But the important piece that we need to focus on for the last part of our discussion is that cardiovascular disease is largely preventable. Lifestyle changes can prevent or at least postpone heart disease. So what do we mean by that, and what can we do? And I think I've had the honor and privilege of partnering with colleagues, Dr. Stacy Rosen, Lori Russo, and Dr. Stacy Rosen, who heads our Katz Institute for Women's Health, and I have worked together for over probably the past 2 decades on doing some research, understanding sex and gender. She now leads the Katz Institute for Women's Health. We have had Board of Trustees members who are committed for us to truly having an expanded healthcare delivery that includes the gender aspects, sex and gender aspects in all disease entities. And it's a journey that we're on to implement, to expand our healthcare delivery model to really include and meet the unique needs of women and women's health. So in our book, Heart Smart for Women, 6 Steps, 6 Weeks to Heart Healthy Living, and this was inspired again by a patient who said that, wouldn't it be nice to have a simple plan, a simple program that can really get women and their families on the journey to heart healthy living? Because, you know, you go to your doctor, you get a prescription, and very often we say exercise, do this, and it seems daunting. So we got together and wrote this book, partnering with one of our nutritionists, to really give an easy plan to get women on the journey to heart healthy living. And part 1, women and heart disease and overview. Part 2, it's really the 6 steps to heart smart living. We felt that we should begin by, you know, inventory and getting ready and stocking the kitchen with heart healthy food. So first, you know, and we learned from our patients. A lot of this book was written with insight from our patients. We'd write a chapter, we'd run an idea by patients, and they'd say, yes, we would do this, we wouldn't do this. And a group of women at a focus group said, you know, we need the plan to begin for us to know what, take inventory. So the first week, you start by looking at the kitchen, getting rid of all of the foods that taste good. It could be processed, but definitely can have long-term effects on advancing the process of atherosclerosis. Week 2, we focus on active living, choosing to be active every day. We say choosing to move. And we know that the body of evidence support the fact that exercise, if we could put it in a pill, will definitely be instrumental in improving many of the risk factors for heart disease. So we say 30 minutes most day of the week. We know that you can get your exercise or your activity in increments of 10. Even walking for 10 minutes a day, truly, truly effective in mitigating cardiovascular disease. We also say finding activities you like. So you don't have to go to a gym. It's walking, swimming, dancing, cycling, just being active, definitely important. And for women, especially as you hit the menopause years, adding 2 times a week of some sort of strength training. We know the benefits of exercise, improves mood, helps control blood pressure, weight control, diabetes, and many other chronic diseases benefit from exercise. Week 3, heart healthy foods. And I think simply said, making your plate much more colorful, portion control. We adhere to the excerpts from the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet as published by the American Heart Association. So truly avoiding foods that are processed, limiting your salt, going easy on sugar, because we know that added sugar definitely can lead, especially to weight metabolic syndrome, weight gain. And so a colorful plate is the simple way of looking at the journey to heart healthy from a diet perspective. And then week 4, we say focus on partnership. And we learned a lot about partnership from the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign. We believe that a partnership is the key to success and sustainability in just overall health and wellness. So you should view your doctor as a partner, your nurse practitioner, your medical team as partners, family and friends. Partnerships are powerful. And if you have a partner, whether it's at the office, whether it's your family, you're much more likely to make sustainable changes to heart healthy living. This here is just a snapshot of the published results from the Go Red for Women campaign by the American Heart Association, that women who have joined the Go Red for Women movement, 90% made one heart healthy change, 65% modified their diet, 54% exercise more frequently, and 35% had a discussion or felt empowered to talk to their doctor about risk factors and coming up with a plan to decrease their chances of getting heart disease. Week 5, we have learned a lot in the past decade and a half on the importance of sleep and stress reduction and the link to cardiovascular disease. We know that the sweet spot is somewhere around 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And so we included in this chapter and in the book ways to really improve your sleep hygiene. The positive effects of sleep we know includes improvement of heart health, better stress milieu of the hormones, the immune system is stronger, just overall health and well-being is improved when we get a lot of sleep. We cannot eliminate stress, but we can learn how to control it. And whether it's using many of the apps, I'm a big fan of the 10% Happier app, and the 10% Happier sort of platform by Dan Harris, the GMA news anchor. And I personally do like 10 minutes before I go to bed every night of just guided meditation, and I think it prepares me for the next day, and I have a much better night's sleep. And week 6, we say you put it all together. Important that you know your risk, know what you can modify, know how you can achieve your goals. But more importantly, we want everyone to know small steps, big gains to the journey of heart healthy living. And as we close, we think of the impact of COVID-19 on heart disease. I think we're at a critical moment in time where we are facing sort of the tsunami of chronic diseases, and COVID-19 is sort of moving into that category. But just to add that when you speak to your doctor, including a discussion about COVID-19 and the complications from or the effect on heart health, definitely there are a few, and you can see here the risks. People that are a little bit older, higher risk for having complications. If you've had COVID-19, having heart disease complications, there are all sorts of long-term effects that are being studied. And the heart disease and the heart complications include some heart attacks, heart failure, arrhythmias, myocardial damage, inflammation of the myocardium, or which is myocarditis. So it's an evolving body of knowledge, but definitely something to add to your list as you go for your overall, heart health screening. Here are your heart healthy goals and numbers, and the American Heart Association has simply put this into Life Simple 7. You can actually go onto their website, download Life Simple 7, and they also offer a plan as to what are the simple 7 things you need to do to get on the journey to heart healthy living. And you can see here, being active, knowing your blood pressure, losing weight, definitely important, the heart healthy eating, stop smoking, being exposed to secondhand smoke. And here are the numbers, and I like to say, 30, my favorites are, of course, blood pressure, all of this you discuss with your doctor. I like to say in terms of weight, because body mass index could be tricky and misleading, that waist circumference is a good measure to figure out where you are, a heart health metric, and that, your waist circumference should be at least half or less than half of your height in inches. Choosing to move, if you do one thing, choose to move every day, 30 minutes of exercise at least 5 days a week. And remember that 99% of US adults, we at least have 1 of 7 cardiovascular health risks. So as we close, I think it comes to the point that we know it's been a journey. We still have work to do. Yes, we have made progress. That advancing women in science and medicine is of critical importance, as highlighted in that Lancet episode, journal of May 2021, that gender equity is not only a matter of justice and right, it is crucial for producing the best research. And overall, the fight for gender equity is everyone's responsibility. And that whether we are calling now for a partnership, and again, it comes to the power of partnership, right, on the journey to health and wellness for all of us as a population, that we need to do more research. We need to understand that there are indeed sex and gender differences, and the work that Dr. Judy Regensteiner and colleagues at the Ludeman Family Center are doing of paramount importance in giving us insight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention, for the opportunity to sort of speak to you about the importance of heart health, women's cardiovascular health specifically. I hope I have convinced you that we all need to be partners in this journey to heart healthy living. Heart disease still remains the #1 killer of men and women in the United States. I hope I've convinced you that it can be preventable, that small step and small lifestyle changes can definitely get us on the journey to longer, healthier life, free of heart disease. And I will end with this quote from Kofi Annan, the late leader of the United Nations. When women thrive, all of society benefits. And I specifically like this one. When women are fully involved, families are healthier. They are better fed, income, savings, and reinvestments go up. And what is true of families is true of communities and eventually of whole countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mirez. What a fantastic talk with great takeaways that we can use in our everyday lives. I also appreciate your dedication to women's health research and your call to action to invest in and empower women. Today's address was timely in that we're talking about health disparities. Encouraging women and underrepresented communities to engage in health will improve the health of all of our communities. We all know that heart health is important, but understanding risk factors and simple strategies to improve cardiovascular health can help us improve outcomes. Prevention and early detection are just as important as treatment, and I know I will be implementing some of these tips into my own life. As we close out this year's program, I remind you that the work of the Ludeman Center is made possible because of your generosity. Thank you for making this work a reality. If you haven't done so already, please consider making a gift now. You can give online or via text. Your gift will go directly to educational, mentoring, and research programs like the ones you heard about today. By making a gift, you can have a direct impact on women's health and sex differences research and help create healthier communities. I hope you enjoyed the program. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you.